yesterday some favourite race teams that are no longer with us. I think favourite dead race teams was the way you described it, Tim.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I described it. You know, over the years, there's been so many of those teams that have passed in all sorts of racing that actually you look back and you think, yeah, I mean, a great example straight away would be Hesketh, the team that really made James Hunt. And let's face it, with the advent of the film Rush, actually, yeah, people who actually know their story so much more now. They're probably bigger now than they actually probably were then. And actually, I'm actually very sad to see them go because realistically, they brought something to the paddock. They were, as well as being a bit of a fun outfit, they weren't there as a joke. They were there to race.
Yeah, I mean they were the last of the private teams, as it were. Particularly while James Hunt was with them, they were no sponsorship. They were the last of that kind of era. Started out with buying March chassis, and then employed the services of Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite to design an all-new car, the Hesketh 308, which is what James Hunt used to win his first Grand Prix at Zandvoort in '75. And what a fantastic car it was! And the evolution of that was going to be something fantastic, but the team ran out of money. So yeah, really good dead team there. Quite an interesting one. Wilf, what about you? Any favourite dead teams?
Favourite dead teams? Probably you'd have to go the old Parmalat Brabham.
Right, yeah.
Take it out with Nelson PK. I'd go back in the old Lotus.
Well, yeah, the original Lotus, Colin Chapman, entered into Formula One in '58, but had been successful in other series before that. And really, during the '60s and the '70s, if you won against Lotus, and Colin Chapman, you had won. Came up with some great innovations. Pioneered the use of monocoque construction with the Lotus 25. Introduced the use of an engine as a stressed member, with the suspension and the gearbox attached off the back of it, and actually using that engine in the Lotus 49. Introduced side pods with the Lotus 72 and ground effects with the Lotus 78, and refined that into the Lotus 79 that Mario Andretti won his championship in. So some really great innovations there, and you're absolutely right about the Brabham team as well. Really successful during that era in the late 70s, early 80s, under the leadership of Bernie Eccleston, with Gordon Murray as the designer, and some great cars that they came up with, particularly the BT 52, I think, with the BMW Turbo, the first turbocharged car to win the World Championship.
Yeah, because they were running the turbo era along with the Renault that was with Alan Prost.
Yeah, the RE30. Yeah. Yeah, what a great season. 80... let me see if I can get the year right. 81, PK's first World Championship. And it could have even gone to Carlos Reutemann in the Williams, which was the bizarre thing about that season.
Was that the season the PK had that coming together in Spa and punched?
Oh no, not Spa, at Hockenheim with Elio Salazar. Yeah. And it took him out, and he probably gave him a. Well, let's be honest.
Probably gave him a smack.
Let's be honest. You watch back at that clip, and Elio Salazar was just an idiot in the wrong place on the track. I mean, how that guy ever got a license to race in F1 is beyond me.
Well, I don't
Where
know.
was
I
it
mean,
when Pastor Maldonado was conceived?
Yeah, interesting thought.
do you reckon that's just a handed down license? They just scribbled a name out and put his name next to it.
We're moving away from the subject. So yeah, great race teams: Hesketh, Lotus, Brabham. I'm going to add one into the mix here that might be a little bit unusual, and that's Ligier.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good call. Ligier are an absolutely fantastic French team that's sadly no longer with us. Look at some of the racing pedigree they've got. Did they not evolve into Alan Prost Racing for a bit as well?
They did, yeah.
Right.
Alan Prost bought them out and run them as Ligier for a year before it became the full Prost team. But yeah, you look back, in the early 80s, there were a couple of times there when they were title contenders. I'm trying to think back what season it was, if it was 79 or 80. But at the beginning third of the championship, they were actually leading it. They'd won a couple of Grand Prix. The cars were running really well, had a lot of power, and they were real title contenders.
Yeah, and the French have actually got several successful teams as we go back. It's not just the other nations that have had multiple good teams. Another team which actually I think a lot of people don't remember so much are Arrows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, they had a good standing in the team, and they performed well. But I just think, obviously, with the larger manufacturers getting much more backing, I just don't think that they had the push that they deserved.
Well, the demise of Arrows came about in part. Tom Walkinshaw owned them in the last part of their formation. So he bought them out in 1996. But by the early 2000s, Tom Walkinshaw's businesses were not doing so well, and they collapsed and ultimately brought down the Arrows Formula One team with it. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. But they came out of the Shadow team, had some really great ideas on some of the cars that they had over the years. Some really good drivers. They had Alan Jones. They managed to get Alan Jones out of retirement to drive for them for a bit in 1983. They've had Damon Hill during his the year after he won the World Championship in 1997. So they've never been short of, or they've not been short of having top class drivers at various points, but just unfortunate never to win a Grand Prix.
Oh yeah, totally. It's they're one of those teams that are always going to be in the footnotes, and it'd be nice to see them back one day. But I'm not entirely sure we're ever quite going to have that sport again. It's
I think when they got Damon in, I think that was the last ditch attempt to get the big sort of financial backing when you bring a world championship driver into the team.
But I mean, it was only a couple of years after that they then got the sponsorship from Arrows, and things were looking really good. And then they had some really good drivers in there. Jos Verstappen. They had Heinz-Harald Frentzen, multiple Grand Prix winner. So it's not as if they were, as you say, they were short on having pedigree. And at one point they had a really good cash position. Just unfortunate it never materialised.
And with Jos Verstappen, they literally had a driver that was on fire.
Yes, that's true. While we're talking about teams at the lower end, there's one that we've got to mention, that we've absolutely got to mention, Minardi.
Minardi,
yeah.
they run it on. I had more wages coming in than the backing of Minardi. How they managed to run a season after season with what they had.
But look at what they achieved.
The go-kart with a motorbike engine on the back.
But what's interesting when you look at Minardi was a lot of drivers started their careers there before going on. Mark Webber, Fernando Alonso. So there were some decent drivers, Jarno Trulli, that got in at Minardi and went on to other things.
I mean, it was a good stepping stone for a lot of drivers to come through. They do a season, see the potential, because obviously a Minardi was always like 3.5, 4 seconds off the lap time when they were doing qualifying. But if you put in a lap time consistently around sort of 2.5 to 3 seconds, other teams see the potential.
Mm. Yeah, and it was always a good starting point for them. Going to divert away a little bit from Formula One, sports car racing, and there are a couple of names that have been really absent from top flight sports car racing for a long while, that both of whom have a really good pedigree at that top level. Ferrari and Jaguar.
Yeah, agreed.
In the 60s you had Ferrari against Ford, you had in the 70s Ferrari against Porsche, in the 80s you had Porsche against Jaguar, and notwithstanding all the success that Jaguar had in the 1950s in sports cars and at Le Mans. So
you also had the Jaguar Mercedes.
Yeah, in the late 80s, yeah.
Situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jaguar, Ferrari, both names that have been missing out of top level sports car racing for a while. Do we think that with these new hypercar regulations that are going to be coming in, that might entice them to look into that? We know that Aston Martin are interested in getting back into top level sports car racing because of the hypercar regulations. Ferrari have got a car, or have got a number of cars that would be eligible for it. Jaguar don't at the moment, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that they could have.
Yeah, I mean, Jaguar realistically came up with the hypercar with the XJ 220. Realistically, that was one of the first hypercars out there. Something that, never mind hitting 200 miles an hour, went way over it. And that, for me, was probably the advent of the hypercar era as we know it. And ever since, I think other people have been trying to push it forwards. The next big leap was the McLaren F1. And hypercars have never looked back. There's so many we can list now. I could probably sit here for about 5 minutes boring everyone to tears with a list of hypercars. But those were sort of landmark cars. And I think Jaguar really need to take it back up.
I mean, to me, the hypercar class at Le Mans sounds really exciting, because you can have your likes there of Porsche against Aston Martin, Jaguar, Ferrari, McLaren, big evocative names, and potentially being run by privateers as well.
Are there any other names that you'd like to see back in sort of sports car racing of old? It's I'm going to throw one in there just to really stir things up. Talbot.
Well,
no, you can't have Talbot back in. No, just not happening.
But actually, where I am going to go with this, and Wilf will probably agree with me on this one, Henry Pescarolo. I mean, what a great driver he was. He won with Graham Hill in the Matra, and then as an actual race team owner. I mean, Wilf, we went to Le Mans in the late 90s, early 2000s, and watched his cars go round, and there were times they were almost as quick as the front-running Audis and the big major teams.
they were throwing it in the mix, and they were showing what potential they had, and it was causing a bit of upset with the bigger manufacturers looking at this going, hang on a minute, they shouldn't even be close, and they are. So that's exciting. When you get stuff like that, that's when it becomes exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's it. If we think about some of the other racing series, obviously Newman-Hass in IndyCar, they were huge during the late 80s and 90s. Obviously not around today, but again, what a great dead team, if you like.
Yeah, and also let's not forget their Paul Newman's effort in the sauce market.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's really, really critical, and it should never be overlooked.
Yeah, it's frankly, his ranch sauce is one of my favourites.
Yeah, his musical career wasn't the best, but
no, and he was. He did a bit of acting on the side, but obviously, ranch sauces, that was his thing. But what a great race team. And again, you think of, Paul Newman himself wasn't a bad driver. He finished third overall at Le Mans in the late 70s. And again, had some great drivers through his team. Michael and Mario Andretti, Nigel Mansell. Later on in the 90s, they were running, or in the early 2000s, they were running Sebastian Bourdais. So, some great drivers.
in that IndyCar series, when it was Newman-Hass, and you had Newman-Hass and you had Penske, and it was always them two, and you always found really good drivers in both teams.
But you also had the Greco team when they were running. Was it Alonso Jr. when he
Al Unser Jr.
You had the True Sports team that were running Bobby Rahal when he for two of his IndyCar championship wins. And where are they now?
It's those things. They fall by the wayside, and people just disregard it, and it's a shame that they do.
Yeah, I agree. The other point I'm going to make, and I'm going to come away. We're now going to come away from international motorsport, British motorsport. I'm conscious we've got on time on this one, but Andy Rouse.
Yeah.
Andy Rouse racing in touring cars.
Yeah, let's face it, he's synonymous with the Sierra RS 500.
Yeah, but the bizarre thing about that was he never of the titles that he never won a title in the RS 500. He won it in the predecessor, which was a car that he developed, and he'd helped develop the 500, but he never won a title in the RS 500 Cosworth.
Wasn't he picked?
That blue and white livery.
Wasn't he beaten to the toe by Steve Soper in it when he was running the RS 500?
No, Rob Gravitt. Rob Gravitt. It was him and Rob Gravitt battling it out in 1990. But again, Andy Rouse, great engineer, great racing driver, had a great team. We've talked about the Sierras, but after the Sierras was running Toyota Carinas for himself and Wilf. Then had the official Ford entry for the Mondeo with again himself and Paul Radisich. Came away from driving took a step down from doing frontline driving, and was running a program on Nissans and was about to do a Works Toyota Corolla entry as well in the late 90s. Fantastic guy. It would be great to see what
was a touring guy era that I loved, because you had so many different manufacturers. Like you had all the privateers and you had all the top teams, and there was so much going on, so many battles going everywhere, that it was just, you didn't know where to look, because there was always action happening, rather than, I think nowadays when you get the Astra VXR and you've got 3 entries in the same works team, and then 2 other teams has got the same VXR, and you go, well, it's like you really need. I know now that they're getting more and more diverse with the cars that are coming in, but it did go at one point. You only had about 3 different manufacturers, and it was.
Let's remember some of the other great cars. Then, I mean, the Volvo Estates,
or the T5. That was amazing.
Yep. Let's not forget that also there was Vauxhall, there was Peugeot, there was Toyota, there was Nissan in there as well. So many other teams. You're right, Wilf. The diversity was amazing. Peugeot. Did I mean?
Well, I think at one point there was 9 manufacturers in the British touring cars. You had Alfa Romeo, BMW,
Renault,
Ford, Honda, Renault, Peugeot, Nissan, Toyota, Mazda, Vauxhall, Volvo. What's that? Well, 11. You know, there were massive,
and even then, when you was going in with the back end on the privateers, you had VW running the Golfs at the back.
Yeah,
it was an unbelievable series. Yeah, it was great. Well, we might have to do a feature, a bigger feature on touring cars. So there we go. That's just a few of our favourite long lost racing teams. Write in the comments below any others that you can think of that maybe we've missed out, or put your comments below. And thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch you again soon. Stay safe.